It didn't stop when I crossed the tree line. That's the part nobody warns you about. I thought once I hit pavement, once I saw headlights and power lines and all that normal world junk, it'd be over. Like waking up from a bad dream. But the quiet followed me. Not the peaceful kind either. The kind that presses in on your ears. Like the world's holding its breath and waiting for you to screw up. I'll be lying in bed and everything just drops out. No wind, no insects, no distant traffic. Just that same dead silence from the forest, sliding right up under my door like it owns the place. My phone glitches when it happens. The screen dims, then goes black. Every single time. And I get this cold, crawling feeling in my chest, like I'm being sized up from a distance. Sometimes I hear it. Not footsteps, those would be easier. It's more like a shift in pressure, like something heavy leaned in closer. Close enough that if I spoke, if I even breathed wrong, it'd know exactly where I was. I've learned to stay still. Learned the hard way. People keep telling me I look wrecked, like I haven't slept in weeks. They joke, say the woods messed me up. I laugh with them, because what else am I supposed to do? Tell them the forest didn't let me go. Tell them it's still watching, still counting my breaths. Because that's the thing. I didn't escape. I just walked out with it still attached to me. And to understand why, you've got to know where I actually left off after part 1, what shape I was in when I finally staggered out of those trees. Asterisk when I finally got out. When the trees thinned and the dirt road showed up like it actually wanted me. Alive, I thought that was the end of it. I thought crossing that line meant something. Like the forest had rules, and I'd somehow slipped past them. That's what I told myself, anyway. Truth is, I was wrecked. My hands wouldn't stop shaking, even hours later. I smelled like smoke, sweat, and something older I couldn't scrub off. Every sound made me flinch. Tires on gravel sounded like footsteps. Wind hitting the truck sounded like breathing. I didn't sleep that first night. I laid there staring at the ceiling, replaying the quiet. That dead, swallowed quiet where even your own thoughts feel too loud. My ears kept ringing, like the forest had left something buzzing inside my head. And every time I closed my eyes, I wasn't back in my bed. I was back under those trees, feeling watched, feeling measured. Like something was still deciding what to do with me. People kept saying I was lucky. Rangers, even the eldersome word, over and over. Lucky, but none of them looked me in the eye when they said it. They talked around what happened. Nobody asked what I heard when the forest went quiet. Nobody asked what I felt standing there. Alone, knowing I shouldn't move, shouldn't speak, shouldn't even breathe too hard. It was like there was a script they all agreed to follow, and I wasn't supposed to a dash lib. Physically, I healed fast enough. Scratches closed. Bruises faded, but something stayed off. My reflection didn't feel synced up anymore, like I was half a second behind myself. I'd catch my own eyes in a window or a mirror and feel this cold jolt of recognition float by. Doubt. Like something else was looking back, just trying on my face to see how it fit. The worst part was the quiet that followed me home. Not normal quiet. Not late night quiet. This was heavier. Rooms felt padded, like sound got eaten before it could bounce. I'd turn on the TV just to have noise, but even that felt wrong. like I was breaking a rule I didn't understand yet. And every once in a while, usually right before dawn, he'd hear it. That same pressure in my ears. That same drop, like the world was holding its breath again. I tried telling myself it was just trauma. That's what they tell you to say. Trauma makes everything easier to file away. But trauma doesn't leave marks you don't remember getting. Trauma doesn't rearrange your dreams so you wake up knowing directions you've never walked. And trauma sure as hell doesn't make you afraid of silence, because that's what stuck with me most. Not the fear, not the shapes I barely saw. It was the rules I felt but didn't know yet. The sense that getting out didn't mean I was done. It just meant I'd been allowed to leave for now. And that's where I messed up. Because once I was back among people, once the lights were on and the doors were locked, I thought I could act normal again. I thought the rules ended at the tree line. That was the first rule I broke after leaving. Asterisk, I didn't break the rule on purpose. That's the messed up part. Nobody ever thinks they're doing something wrong when it happens. I was already out. Off the forest, miles away, tires humming on the highway, convincing myself the whole thing was done, that I'd made it, that whatever was back there belonged to the trees in the dark and not to me anymore. My hands were still shaking on the steering wheel, heart pounding like I'd just outrun something real, something physical. And that's when I did it. I spoke about it. Not the name, not directly. I didn't even realize that counted. I muttered it under my breath, half a joke, half a release, the way you do when you're trying to bleed off fear. Just a few words, barely louder than a whisper, telling myself I wasn't crazy, telling myself what I'd seen wasn't real. The elders always said silence wasn't just about respect, it was about survival. But no one ever explained how thin the line was. How even thinking out loud could be enough. The second the words left my mouth, the air in the truck changed. That sounds dramatic, I know, but it's the only way to describe it. The cab felt smaller, tighter, like the windows had fogged up even though they were clear. The radio cut to static for half a second, then came back louder than before. I laughed. Nervous, told myself it was just my head messing with me. But the road ahead looked wrong. Same asphalt, same trees, but everything felt staged. Like I was driving through a place pretending to be normal. I remembered something an old ranger once told me, years before, after a bad patrol. He said the forest doesn't chase you, it waits for you to mess up. Back then, I thought he was just trying to scare the rookies. Sitting there in my truck, replaying my own voice in my head, I realized he wasn't joking. I'd broken the rule the elders never wrote down. Don't carry the forest with you. Don't give it a voice outside its own ground. I tried to fix it, rolled the windows down, let cold air slap my face, said nothing after that. Not a word. Miles passed, maybe minutes. Time got weird. The tension didn't leave. If anything, it dug in deeper, like whatever had noticed me was just settling in. I kept checking the rearview mirror, half expecting to see trees where the road should have been, branches crawling out of the dark. Nothing was there. That was worse. By the time I reached town, I knew something had shifted. The rule wasn't about escaping the forest. It was about not inviting it to follow. And I'd cracked the door myself, just enough. I parked, killed the engine, and sat there listening to the ticking metal cooldown. That's when I realized. The quiet hadn't stayed behind. It had learned my rhythm. It knew my voice. And as I stepped out of the truck, trying to act normal, I started noticing little things that didn't belong things, that told me the forest hadn't let go yet. Not even close. And that's when the signs started showing up, following me out of the woods, asterisk, asterisk. I thought once I crossed the highway, once the trees thinned out and the radio signal came back, whatever lived back there would lose interest. That's what I told myself, anyway. But the first sign hit me before I even made it home. I stopped. At a gas station, middle of nowhere, bright lights buzzing overhead, people talking, cars coming and going. Normal stuff, safe stuff, and still. The second I stepped out of my truck, it happened again. That quiet. Not full silence, not real ibit. Everything felt muted, like someone had turned the world's volume knob way down just for me. That night, I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard the forest breathing. Not wind, not animals. Just that low, waiting pressure, like something standing right outside the edge of hearing. My dreams weren't dreams either. I wasn't running or screaming. I was standing still, stuck in place, while the trees leaned closer. And every time I woke up, the room felt wrung to still, too empty, like the air itself was holding its breath. Then came the sounds. Soft taps on my window around 3 a.m. Always 3 of them. Never loud, never random. Just enough to let me know it was on purpose. When I checked, there was nothing there. No footprints, no branches, no animals, just silence. Snapping back into place the moment I opened the door. I stopped checking after the 3rd night. Something in my gut told me that was exactly what it wanted. I started noticing marks too, small ones at first. Scratches on my arms I couldn't explain. Mud on my boots when I knew I hadn't been outside. Once, I found pine needles on my kitchen floor, arranged in a loose circle, like they'd been set there carefully. I don't even have pine trees near my place. I swept them up, hands shaking, and swore I wouldn't think about it. Big mistake. Thinking about it felt like knocking on a door. The worst part wasn't what I saw. It was what I felt happening inside me. I stopped talking as much. Words felt heavy, risky. Even normal conversation drained me. I'd catch myself, pausing mid-sentence, heart racing, like I was about to say something I wasn't supposed to. Silence started to feel safer than noise. Familiar, comfortable. That scared me more than anything else, because it didn't feel forced. It felt taut. People noticed. Said I seemed distant. Said my eyes looked tired, like I hadn't rested. In weeks, they were right. Every quiet moment felt loaded now. Elevators, empty rooms, late-night drives. Silence wasn't empty anymore. Was crowded, full of attention, full of patience. That's when it finally clicked. This wasn't random. This wasn't trauma or stress or some delayed shock. These were signs, breadcrumbs, proof that whatever I ran from didn't need the forest to reach me. And worse, it didn't rush. It took its time, letting me adjust, letting me change. I thought I knew the rules. Thought the elders had told us everything that mattered. But standing there in my own home, afraid of how quiet it had become, I realized something ugly. There were things they never said out loud. And in the next part, you'll understand why. Asterisk, there's a reason the elders choose their words carefully. It's not because they don't know more eats, because they do. Growing up around them, you learn real quick that silence isn't just the absence of sound. It's a shield and some truths. Those don't get spoken unless there's no other option left. After everything that followed me home, I went back. Not to the forest never that, but to the elders. I didn't ask questions straight out. You don't do that. You talk around things. You let the quiet do the heavy lifting. But the moment they looked at me, I could tell they already knew. The way. Their eyes lingered just a second too long. The way the room felt heavier. Like the air itself didn't want to move. They never corrected me when I talked about what I heard or what I felt. That was the first giveaway. Instead, one of them said, "Something that still messes with me. Some things notice when they're remembered." No explanation, no follow-up. Just that line hanging there, sharp as a blade. What they don't say out loud is that the warnings aren't about survival. They're about delay, about buying time. The forest doesn't create those things it hosts. Them, like an old house that knows its tenants too well. And once you cross a certain line, once you're aware in the wrong way, the rules change. You're not prey. You're not even a threat. You're acknowledged. That's the part they never teach the young rangers. They don't tell you that fear isn't the danger attention is. That curiosity is louder than screaming. That naming something, even in your head, is like tapping on glass in a dark room and waiting for something to tap back. One elder finally spoke when the others fell quiet. He said the forest has layers, like stories stacked on top of each other. Most people only ever read the first page. Rangers see a little deeper, but some pages aren't meant to be turned. Not because they're cursed, but because they're invitations. And once something ancient realizes you can see it, it doesn't need to rush. That's when I understood why no one ever chased what we lost out there. Missing people weren't hunted. They were waited on. The forest didn't take them in one night. It let them come apart slowly. Let the silence work on them. Let them forget which thoughts were theirs and which ones weren't. I asked why they never told us this before. The answer was simple and terrifying. Because knowing sooner makes it happen sooner. Some truths speed things up. Some knowledge makes you louder than you realize. When I left that day, no one told me how to fix what was happening. They didn't offer protection or prayers or weapons. Just one warning, spoken so softly I almost missed it. Don't fight it the way you think you should. That's when I realized the next lesson wasn't about strength at all. It was about silence and why it matters more than anything you can carry in your hands. Asterisk, growing up, you're taught that if something comes at you, you stand your ground. You carry a weapon. You make noise. You show you're not weak. That mindset works with animals. It works with people. But out there, whatever lives in that forest doesn't play by those rules. That's what the elders were trying to drill into us without ever spelling it out. Weapons make you loud, not just in sound, but in presence. Fear does the same thing. Anger too. Anything that spikes your emotions lights you up like a flare in the dark. And those things don't hunt the way we understand hunting. They don't charge. They don't attack hidden. They listen. They wait. They learn your rhythm. One elder told me a story I'd heard before, but never really understood. Long time ago, a group of men went looking for something that had been taking livestock. They went armed. Rifles, knives, the whole deal. They came back empty-handed, shaken, saying the woods went dead silent the second they stepped in. No birds, no insects, nothing. One of them fired a warning shot just to break the tension. After that, none of them slept right again. Every one of them claimed the silence followed them home. One by one, they stopped talking, stopped laughing. Some disappeared. The rest just faded. Silence, I learned, isn't weakness out there. It's camouflage. When you stay quiet not just with your mouth, but with your thoughts, your breathing, your reactions blend back into the background. You become boring, easy to overlook. That's the goal. Not to win. Just to not be worth the effort. The elders never carried weapons into those parts of the forest. They carried habits, slow steps, controlled breathing, no names spoken, no pointing, no sudden movements. If something felt off, they didn't investigate. They left. Curiosity is noise. Courage is noise. Even prayer can be noise if it comes from fear. Once I understood that, a lot of things clicked into place. Why the silence felt so heavy. Why it seemed to press in on you, daring you to react. It wasn't trying to scare you for fun. It was testing you, waiting for that one mistake, that gasp, that curse, that whispered question of what was that. I realized then that every time I'd grabbed my weapon back there, every time my heart raced or my thoughts spiraled, I'd been ringing a dinner bell. Not for my body, but for my attention. And attention is what they feed on. Fear is just the seasoning. That's why the elders didn't rush to help me now. They knew fighting, it would only speed things up. They knew I had to learn to quiet myself before anything else, to stop reacting, to stop resisting in the way my instincts screamed at me to. But here's the part that still keeps me up at night. Silence only works if you're not already chosen. And not long after that conversation, I realized something had changed. Something about me wasn't quiet anymore, matter how hard I tried. That was the moment I knew I wasn't just being watched. I was marked. I didn't realize it all at once. It wasn't some big dramatic moment with flashing lights or voices in the dark. It crept up on me slow, the way rot does. Quiet, patient. The first clue was my reflection. I caught it in the bathroom mirror. One morning, half awake, brushing my teeth. For a split second, my eyes didn't look like mine. They looked focused, like something behind them was paying attention in a way I hadn't invited. I laughed it off. Told myself I was tired. Told myself I was letting stories get in my head. But the feeling didn't leave. It stuck around like a bad smell you can't wash out. Everywhere I went, I felt slightly out of place, like the world was half a step out of sync with me. Conversations felt delayed. Sounds arrived a second too late. Silence showed up early. The real moment hit while I was driving home one night. Same road I'd taken 100 times. Trees lining both sides. Moonlight cutting through the branches. Then, out of nowhere, the radio cut dead. No static, no warning, just silence. Thick, heavy silence. My hands tightened on the wheel without me meaning to. My chest went cold. I glanced in the rearview mirror and that's when I saw it. Not a shape, not a face, just the absence of depth behind me, like the darkness was deeper than it should have been, like the road didn't end where it was supposed to. The silence pressed in so hard my ears rang, and inside that quiet, I felt it. Not fear, recognition, the kind you feel when someone says your name in a crowded room. I pulled over without thinking. Bad move. The second the truck stopped, the woods leaned in. I don't mean physically, I mean the space itself felt closer. Tighter, like it was closing ranks. My breath sounded too loud. My heartbeat felt like a drum. And that's when I knew the silence wasn't reacting to me anymore. It was already aware. I looked down at my arm and saw it just above my wrist. A faint, dark mark, like a bruise trying to remember how it got there. The skin felt numb around it, cold to the touch. I hadn't noticed it before. I would have noticed it before. Something inside me sank, slow and heavy, like a stone dropped into deep water. That was the moment it clicked. The elders' looks, the unfinished sentences, the warnings that felt more like delays than protections. This wasn't about chasing people down. This wasn't about dragging someone screaming into the trees. This was about choosing, being marked. Didn't mean I was doomed right away. It meant I was interesting. It meant I'd crossed from background noise into signal, from someone passing, through to someone worth waiting on. And the scariest part, I didn't feel panic anymore. I felt calm, focused, like part of me was syncing up with something old and quiet and very, very patient. I started the engine and drove home, but I already knew something had changed. I wasn't being followed the way I feared. I was being allowed to leave. And once I understood that, I realized the truth was worse than any chase story I'd ever heard. Because whatever marked me didn't need to hurry. Asterisk, once you understand they don't chase, everything gets worse. Chasing is loud. Chasing is sloppy. Chasing means mistakes. Whatever marred me didn't need any of that. It already knew where I was going. It knew I'd keep moving, keep living, keep pretending things were normal. Time wasn't an enemy too. Time was the tool. That's the part most people don't get. We're wired to expect danger to rush us. Footsteps behind you, breathing too close, a shadow breaking into a sprint. But this wasn't like that. Days passed, then weeks, nothing dramatic happened. No doors slamming, no figures in the trees. Just small things, barely noticeable, stacking up slow. Silence would hit at random. In grocery stores, at traffic lights, in crowded rooms where sound should have been everywhere. For half a second, everything would drop out, like the world glitched. And in that gap, I'd feel it watching, measuring, waiting to see if I'd react. I learned not to. I learned to keep my face blank, my breathing even, my thoughts shallow. That alone tells you how bad it had gotten. The elders were right about one thing: patience is power. These things don't need fear right away. They let it ferment, let doubt creep in, let you start questioning your own mind. Because once you start doing that, you do half the work for them. You isolate yourself. You stop sharing. You stop trusting your instincts because you're scared you're imagining things. I started noticing patterns in the people who'd vanished over the years. Rangers, hunters, Locals who knew the woods too well. None of them talked about being chased. They talked about being tired. About feeling watched long after they left. About silence following them into their homes. And then one day, they'd just be gone. No struggle, no scene. Like they stepped out of the story quietly. That's when it hit me. Waiting isn't passive. It's active restraint. Like holding a door open and knowing the person on the other side will eventually walk through on their own. These things don't force you into the forest again. They let the forest grow inside you. In your habits, your sleep, your thoughts. Until one day, being anywhere else feels wrong. I'd catch myself staring at tree lines longer than I should. Feeling calm when the woods went quiet. Feeling uncomfortable when things were loud and busy. That scared me more than the mark on my arm ever did, because it meant the waiting was working. Not fast, not obvious, just steady. Every night before sleep, there was this sense of expectation, like something checking in, not demanding, just confirming I was still there, still marked, still moving forward exactly the way it expected me to. And the worst part, I knew, deep down, that if I ever did go back, really go back, it would welcome me. That's when I finally understood the truth I'd been avoiding since the start. Leaving the forest wasn't the end of anything. It was just the long way around. And the next part of this story is where you realize why I say the forest never actually let me go. Asterisk, I used to think escape meant distance, miles on a road, city lights replacing trees, noise replacing silence. But the truth hit me slow and ugly. The forest didn't lose me because I left. It never needed to hold my body to keep me. It already had the part that mattered. Once you're marked, the forest stops being a place. It becomes a presence. It shows up in small ways, the kind you can almost ignore if you're tired enough. The way shadows linger a little too long at the edge of your vision. The way silence doesn't feel empty anymore, just occupied. Like someone's standing just out of frame, waiting for you to notice. I realized it one night standing in my kitchen. Lights on, door locked, everything normal. The fridge hummed. The clock ticked. And still, that pressure rolled in. That same weight I felt under the trees. I hadn't thought about the forest all day. I hadn't spoken its name. I'd done everything right. And yet, there it was. Calm. Patient. Familiar. That's when it clicked. Nothing followed me out. I carried it with me. Not like a curse you can break, but like a door you can't unsee once you know it's there. The forest didn't let me go because it didn't have to. It had already changed how I listened, how I noticed quiet, how I reacted when the world went still. I stopped visiting places with too much open space. Fields, parks, trails, anywhere the sound could drop out without warning. I avoided windows at night, kept lights on longer than I should, not because I was scared of the dark, but because darkness made the silence clearer, sharper, more focused, and the scariest part, nothing ever forced itself on me. No threats, no voices, no commands. Just a constant sense of being expected somewhere, like missing an appointment you don't remember making. Like the forest was just waiting for the moment I got tired enough to stop resisting. That's how it wins. Not with fear, but with comfort, with familiarity, with the slow idea that maybe going back wouldn't be so bad. That maybe the silence out there would finally make sense. That maybe the forest wasn't holding me prisoner. Maybe it was calling me home. That thought scared me more than any night I spent out there. Because it wasn't planted violently. It felt earned. And once I understood that, I stopped lying to myself. I wasn't surviving anymore. I was postponing. Living on borrowed time, measured out in quiet moments and unfinished thoughts. The elders were right. Some things don't chase. They wait. And some places don't release you, they just give you enough rope to walk yourself back. That's why I'm telling this now. Not because I'm safe, but because I don't know how much longer I'll be able to pretend this ends here. I'm telling this now because staying quiet stopped working. For a long time, I thought silence would protect me. That if I didn't speak about it, didn't record it, didn't share it, whatever had its attention on me would lose interest. That's how it's always been taught. Keep it contained. Don't spread the story. Don't give it more space than it already has. But lately, something's shifted. The quiet doesn't back off anymore. It shows up faster, heavier, like it knows I'm running out of room. I'll be mid-sentence with someone and forget what I was saying. I'll wake up at night, already holding my breath, like my body knows something my mind hasn't caught up to yet. And there are gaps now, little stretches of time I can't account for. 10 minutes here, an hour there, no panic, no confusion, just missing. That's when I realized this isn't about me surviving anymore. It's about the pattern repeating. About the next person thinking the rules don't apply to them. Thinking they'll hear the silence and handle it better. Thinking knowledge equals control. That's how it spreads, not like a virus, but like a story people think they can outsmart. I've seen what happens when people wait too long to speak. Their words get thinner. Their warnings turn vague. Eventually, they stop warning anyone at all. They just disappear from conversations, from jobs, from memory. And once that happens, the forest gets quieter about them. Like it's done. I don't want that. Not yet, so I'm breaking the rule in the only way I know how carefully. I'm not naming things. I'm not giving directions. I'm not telling you where to go or what to look for. I'm just telling you how it feels when the quiet starts paying attention. When silence stops being empty and starts being specific. If you've ever been somewhere and felt the sound drop out too cleanly, like someone hit mute on the world, that's not nothing. If you've ever felt watched without fear, without panic, just awareness, that's not imagination. And if you ever catch yourself wanting to go back to a place that scared you for reasons you can't explain, that's when you need to stop and listen to that instinct screaming under the calm. I'm telling this now because once the forest decides you're done talking, you don't get a second chance. Stories end unfinished. Warnings get swallowed. Silence wins by default. And if you're still listening, if this story feels a little too close, then you need to hear what comes next. Because knowing why I'm speaking is one thing, but knowing what to do. When the forest goes quiet, that might be the difference between walking away and being waited on. That's where this ends and where the final warning begins. If you ever hear the forest go quiet, don't brush it off. Don't tell yourself it's just your ears playing tricks on you, or that animals do that sometimes. They don't, not like this. Real silence doesn't arrive gently. It drops, clean, heavy, like someone threw a blanket over the world and pressed it down, just for you. The first thing you'll notice is how loud you suddenly feel. Your breathing, your heartbeat, the way your boots scrape dirt or leaves. Everything about you feels exposed, like you're the only thing making noise in a place that's decided noise is no longer welcome. That's not fear talking. That's instinct, and you need to listen to it. When that quiet hits, don't call out. Don't joke. Don't say anyone's name, not even your own. Words carry farther than you think in places like that. Not in distance, but in meaning. Sound isn't just sound out there. It's acknowledgement. It's proof you're present and paying attention. And attention cuts both ways. You might feel the urge to move fast, to get out, to do something, anything to break the tension. Fight that urge. Panic is loud. Sudden movement is loud. Even praying, if it comes from fear, can be loud. The forest doesn't care what you believe. It cares how much space you take up. Stand still if you can. Slow your breathing. Let your thoughts flatten out. Think about nothing important, nothing emotional. The goal isn't bravery. The goal is being forgettable. You want to be background noise again, a shape that doesn't stand out, a presence that isn't worth the effort. And whatever you do, don't look too hard into the trees. Your eyes will try to make sense of shadows. They always do. That's how you convince yourself you saw something. And once you convince yourself, once your mind locks onto the idea of being watched, that awareness gets louder, sharper, harder to take back, if the silence holds. If it stretches longer than feels natural, leave calmly. No running, no frantic scanning, just steady steps, like you belong there and you're not in a hurry. The moment you act like prey, the rules change. The moment you act curious, they change again. And if the quiet follows you past the tree line, past the road, past the point where things should feel normal again, pay attention to that. Don't tell yourself you're safe just because you can see headlights or hear traffic. Silence doesn't need the forest once it knows you. Sometimes it just uses the forest to introduce itself. I'm not telling you this to scare you. Fear's the easy part. I'm telling you because the people who ignore that quiet are the ones who vanish without a sound. No chase, no struggle. Just one day gone. Like the world decided to stop noticing them. If you ever hear the forest go quiet, remember this: you don't have to understand what's happening. You just have to respect it. Curiosity can wait. Pride can wait. Survival comes from knowing when to stop pushing for answers. And if you think this warning feels unfinished, like something still hanging in the air, that's because it is. Because there's one last thing I haven't told you yet, and it's about what happens after the warning is ignored. I wish I could say this is where it ends, that telling the story broke whatever hold the forest has on me. But lately, the silence doesn't wait as long as it used to. It shows up quicker, closer, like it's done being patient. There are things I haven't said yet, things the elders warned me never to share unless it was already too late. If you think the forest only watches, Part 3 is where you learn what happens when it finally decides to answer back.